The following podcast is part of the Underdog Sports Podcast Network. For advertising information or to find more great podcasts, visit us at www.theunderdogsports.com and follow us on Twitter at RealTheUnderdog.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Atlantic Files, the number one podcast on the number one division in the NBA, brought to you by the Underdog Sports Podcast Network. And this week, we are joined by Josh Hayes, the on-air host of Rotoballer Radio, hosting 6 days a week. What's going on, Josh? Thanks for joining us.
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me on. Excited to talk some Atlantic NBA with you for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely near and dear to our hearts. And I mean, we finally have some real basketball to talk about. A lot of the times it's just been Dennis, Mike, and I fighting about Ben Simmons and fighting about Kyrie Irving. We've had our good amount of battles.
Mike and I don't get an introduction.
Nah, everyone knows who you are.
I was thinking the same thing, Dennis. We're not important here.
Hey, to be fair, I didn't even say my own name.
He got so thrown off by the fourth that he just skipped the three of us.
Exactly. I'm not used to having four people on here. As everyone knows, Alex Fishbein, Dennis Clausen, Mike Bash. And there you go, Dennis. I even put you before Mike this time.
It's like Ben Simmons trying to shoot an open three. He got stage fright and passed it up.
Hey, in practice, they look pretty good, though, right? I mean, when it's not on an NBA floor, he looks like Reggie Miller. So I don't know what's going on there, but I mean, maybe one day, right?
That's true. I mean, he hit a couple threes.
He might go play with the, I don't know how to pronounce it, but the team that LaMelo Ball owns in the Australian League. That's where he'll start hitting threes.
Yeah.
Illawarra Skyhawks or something.
Yeah, true. So, as we are here, we are a little bit into the season, about 2 weeks, and we obviously have some Atlantic Division observations and everything to talk about. Some things to talk about, especially with the Nets and the Sixers, because that's who we talk about the most, really. But I want to get your guys' first thoughts. So far, we have the Knicks leading the division and the Raptors at the bottom, and then everyone else in between, which, I mean, the Raptors are expected, but the rest not so much. So we can start with Josh. I mean, is there any observations that stand out to you so far in the Atlantic Division or anything like that?
Yeah, so I think Brooklyn, starting out 2-2, it's way too early to be overreactionary. I know Kyrie Irving is the story, but to be honest with you, I hope Kyrie holds out forever, for life. You know what I mean? If you want to take this stance and just go ahead and throw away $40 million because your personal opinion on being an anti-vaxxer is that important, great. I want him to understand too that the NBA doesn't need you. I think he feels like maybe he's a little bit more important than he actually is. But this is what I want to do. I want Brooklyn to go on a 20-game winning streak and just let him know how little they actually need him. You know what I mean? And that the NBA will just literally move on without. Eventually, it'll stop being a story. And they'll be able to file de facto retirement papers or something else like this and just waive the salary or something like that. But $40 million to take one stance like that, I'll be actually impressed if he decides to sit out the entire season and just gives all the money back for 1 year, because that's a big chunk of change.
You might not need him. The NBA might not need him, but I definitely need him. The Nets
drafted him, huh?
The Nets are these first 3-4 games have just been uninspiring. They almost lost to the Sixers, which that would have been, an abomination of epic proportions. But
I wouldn't have let you hear the end of it.
Exactly. But they just seem stagnant. They seem like they're missing something. And maybe Kyrie Irving isn't the piece that if he came in it would fix everything, but it just seems like they're 80% there. I'm not panicking. It's game 5 of the season. They play the Heat tonight, so I'm not worried. But we've seen them for 7 games, the big 3. I want to see the Nets at full strength with everyone healthy, everyone playing, and we're this close. But Kyrie Irving's got to be his weird self and cause all these issues.
I will say real quick, too, according to BovadaSportsbook.com, somehow Kyrie Irving is plus 6,600 odds to win the MVP. So if anyone feels really lucky as a betting man,
If anybody else will
try it out.
Anyone else will needs like a coaster or something else like that, come get that ticket after the season. You know what I mean? Slide that right onto their coffee table.
Yeah, you might want to save your money.
So sportsbooks get rich. Crazy bets like that. People are like, Kyrie, he's coming back and he's going to be awesome.
I saw these bets. There was one bet. It was like 2 teams to win by over 30 points. The guy bet like 95 cents and won like $2,000. It was like, first off, how do you find that bet? But second off, why did you wager 95 cents? Like, you couldn't put $5 on it. You would have won a lot more money. So
some people just don't like to bet that much. Sometimes I put $1 down on a huge parlay just for the fun of it.
It feels like a true degenerate right now that couldn't round it up to $1. You know what I mean? He's like,
I only have 95 cents left in my account.
It's like a 95 cents in my Bovada account. Like, fire this 20-team parlay up. Yeah, boom.
So, okay, I wasn't sure who was going to talk and who wasn't going to talk, so I didn't want to.
Oh no, you're good,
Dennis. Way to be awkward there. It's okay, but no,
I'm like you normally.
It is week 1 of the NBA season, so this is the part of the season where Dennis's projections look amazing, and then come the All-Star break, they're all going to look awful. So,
I mean, how many things have I said already? Scottie Barnes looks like an absolute stud. I was high on Lonzo Ball. Look at what he's doing. The Bulls
the number 2 pick in the draft.
The Bulls are 4-0, like I said. I mean, how many things have I said that have already come true?
Caruso's been looking good.
Oh, and on top of that, how many times has Joel Embiid been on the injury report so far?
I mean, that was expected.
I mean, come on. We're 3-4 games in, and this guy, game 2, he was on the fence about not playing, and he's been on the injury report ever since. So this is exactly the type of stuff that I'm talking about when it comes to this. But as far as the Nets go, the Nets started off the season, everybody was raving about, even though they don't have Kyrie Irving, they're gonna shit stomp the Bucks, and that didn't happen at all. They go into Philly, barely beat Philadelphia, even barely beating Joel Embiid on one leg. His knee's about to fall off. Charlotte heads into Brooklyn. They get shit stomped again by a pretty good Charlotte team that's looking good. And then Spencer Dinwiddie comes back to Barclays, and I wanted to cry because I was like, please don't leave. Stay. I love you. Like, I don't want you to go. And this is unfortunate. This Kyrie Irving thing, he's just using this as his leg to stand out because he doesn't want to play. He made it apparent last season that he didn't want any excuse you could think of. This guy's not going to play. He wasn't going to play in the bubble because he didn't want to die of COVID. And now you have an actual vaccine that will help lessen your chances of dying, and this idiot still doesn't want to play. So I hope I just want him gone. I want him traded so that we can actually move on with our life. But shout out to Patty Mills, though, because Patty Mills has been looking incredible lately, too. Like you said. I
brought him up for 6th man of the year.
I like Patty Mills a lot, too. Like, I've been saying this for a long time. Like, in the height of his career with the Spurs, like, Patty Mills could have started for, 10 teams in the NBA, and he decided to probably just, keep what he had, which was a really good thing, and a great role and usage on a high performing Spurs team for a long time. But he had a decision he could make. He's like, do I want to go start and do the Reggie Jackson thing, where you get paid, you have a starter's role, but your team's garbage, or do you stay with the Spurs and one of the greatest coaches of all time, and Greg Popovich? So and now he's looking for a ring, and I hope he gets it too, because I would love to see KD get a ring by himself. Outside of the Warriors, I think he got some unnecessary flack for what everybody would have done, which is go join the best team in the NBA and go chase another ring. That worked out for him very well. True. And Harden, to me, if Harden does want to do something else besides hometown buffet, I would love to see him get a ring. Just like get in shape and be serious about it, and not the way that he did it last year, where he showed up with like, the Houston Rockets having to get a whole new like uniform size.
He looked like Mike.
Oh, stop! At least I
knew something was coming there.
I was like, when I'm like, 30 pounds overweight and I look like my waistline's in better shape than James Harden, there's a problem. You know what I mean? So I was hoping that he'd take it serious this time around. And now that he knows where he is, and go chase a ring for real with KD and get something on there. Because like, he's been a great player for a long time and carried the Rockets a ton and had some great chances. Just, they were like the Utah Jazz. They were never going to get past the Chicago Bulls, and the Houston Rockets were never going to get past the Warriors. They just weren't good enough or talented enough. But now he has like a really nice, clean opportunity to do so. And the other thing too that the Nets are always going to do is get freebies at the deadline, like they always do, right? Some people are just not going to want to pay the salary. The Nets have zero problem paying the tax, and they'll do whatever. They'll mortgage the farm once again to be all in and get KD and James Harden another ring. So no matter how bad the start is, somebody is coming over to that team at some point to give them some extra ammunition. Maybe you don't like the full 8-10 man rotation right now, but you will in a month or two and all they need to do is just be in it right now, be a top 3 seed. And I'm sure they'll be more aggressive than anybody else come to the deadline.
I just want to say, Mike, before you go, Josh, I really like you, but when you start this in hometown buffet, we might have an issue.
Hey man,
I thought you were more buffet, of a Golden Corral kind of guy.
Yeah, or Golden Corral. Listen, I used to live in Vegas for a long time. That's like the national capital of buffets. All right. So there's a special place in my heart. They just don't belong anywhere near NBA players. Is all I'm trying to say. Especially not James Harden. I think he went a little bit overboard on that part last season. But now's the season for him to get back on track.
Nah, it was a fat suit. Go ahead, Mike. Sorry, honey.
I was trying to think of who would be a potential buyout for the Nets. The first person that came to mind was Harrison Barnes. I don't even know what his contract is. I was just thinking of a veteran on a bad team, but I was going to say
final year of his deal.
So if he can make his long trip, where we traded the pick away and he finally comes back to the Nets, that'd be great. But hey, let's not act like the Nets are like the evil empire here. We're not the New York Yankees. Like we've never been in this situation. So
well, I mean, you kind of were. It was just like 3 years too late with the whole KD Paul Pierce. Like they tried
but we went through a time where we had no draft picks. Tatum and Brown were our draft picks, and we were acquiring guys in the 20s and taking D'Angelo Russell after he was, taking pictures of or paddling on Nick Young. Like we went through some dirt. We didn't tank like the Sixers. We went through some real shit, and we came out whatever the term is. We came out on the grass was greener.
The Nets to me never deserve to be painted as like the evil empire. Like KD chose to go there. You know what I mean? Like he just decided I was going to do this. I don't think it was like some big recruiting haul that like won him over. And he's like, because he could have gone anywhere. Could have gone to New York. Everybody thought that way he might have decided to rebuild there with that, but he decided to do it with the Nets. And like no one should fault the Nets or anybody else for that. But the only thing I will say is they don't finish in the East top 3. That's a little bit of a concern for them. And learning about what happened last year, like try to do what you can to just get the number 1 seed. It's like, so many of those games came down to like, a possession, right? Mm-hmm. For the Nets in the playoffs. And think about how close KD got by himself, right? Imagine if they just put it all together. They get a full season with James Harden, who doesn't have to play through injuries. They add a couple pieces. You get, a LaMarcus Aldridge out there who plays a great role, a great 20 minutes off the bench. It's like, probably going to be one of the better sub big man that you can afford out there. And he joins the team for nothing. I like James Johnson a lot too. Like both for like 6-man, inside outside, good defensive purposes, and for like just tough guy. Like nobody's messing with an MMA jiu-jitsu black belt.
he was brought in to be the Giannis slow down guy and the Middleton stopper.
Love it.
That's all he was. That's his role.
It's perfect for him.
So I mean, Durant literally, it was 2 inches. 2 inches decided.
It was one shoe size.
Yeah, I mean, it was that close.
Yeah, this is why I like the Nets to come out of the East this year, because if with as many injuries that they had, and Kevin Durant shouldn't even be playing close to anything like those minutes coming off the injury he did. And, you can see how bad Harden wanted it. Like, Harden also should have never been on the court at all. He played on one leg. If he could make like 30% from three, just like 30% in that series, they go to the finals, and they have and I think KD probably could have carried them against the Suns, in my opinion. I don't, if they were good enough to beat the Bucks, and they almost were, and the Bucks beat the Suns, and, process of elimination that way. But yeah, the Nets to me are the team more likely than anybody else to be all in. So Sixers, because Daryl Morey, he has too much pride, could have moved Brogdon for Ben Simmons. Looks like an absolute mistake at this point right now. Like the price has fallen so far down. Like if you could, I would go back to that immediately and like, hey, what about Brogdon? Are you guys cool with that now? Because we changed our mind. We would definitely like Brogdon and a pick for Ben Simmons.
That's like me when I try to make a trade with Dennis in fantasy football. He offers me something, I say no, and then 2 months later, I'm like, "Hey, can we go back to that? It was a good offer."
Second thought, yeah. So
I was going to
go ahead.
No, I was going to say at this point, I would trade Ben Simmons for T.J. Warren. Like
I thought you were going to say T.J. McConnell.
Yeah, let's do that. That would be.
TJ
McConnell is the best inbound stealer of all time.
TJ Maxx, like any TJ will work right now at this
TJ
point.
Ford.
Yeah, TJ Ford. Yeah, TJ.
All
Watts.
the TJs that the Pacers had. They had like 4 of them at one point.
Yeah. Any TJ will do right now at this point. The Sixers, Daryl Morey, to me, I understand where he is, but I don't think and maybe he's getting Ben Simmons to bend a little bit, but you know what Ben Simmons is also doing? Finessing a very nice little check there while sitting on the roster. I was thinking he was actually going to do this, by the way, because I was like, you know what? You're doing the Sixers a favor by sitting out and letting them fine you the max. But if you show up and you have an excuse not to play, then they got to pay you, and they're still stuck with you, and they still want to get rid of you. Like Harden kind of did it. Like that was like the blueprint, right? Show up, trash the team in the press conferences, the post-game interviews, play like Vince Carter when he wanted to get out of Toronto and just average like 15 a game when you should be averaging 30, talk about how your teammates just don't have it. Like that was like how you get out of the situation. Ben Simmons is taking the next step further. And so like, I have mental health issues, which I'm not saying he doesn't. I probably would too. If I was him and I had this much pressure and everybody in the world in Philadelphia hated me. But like now, the Philadelphia 76ers are stuck in a no-win situation. Nobody wants to give him half of what they originally would have got in the offseason.
I don't think he has mental health issues. I just think he's a wuss who can't handle criticism.
I don't. When's the last time Rich Paul lost against like an ownership or a GM in these situations? I can't remember a time. You know what I mean? Anthony Davis.
Unless Nerlens Noel gets proven right in that whole lawsuit he tried to press against Rich Paul.
Yeah, that part to me might make sense. I think that they probably collectively made a really bad decision, and obviously Nerlens Noel not cashing that check looks like an awful decision.
It's like Dennis Schroeder.
Yeah, some of these people though, like you can't blame the agents, right? Dennis Schroeder thought he was a max player, and he turned much closer to a min player by the end of the first round of the playoffs, right? And then the same thing for Nerlens Noel. He thought he was the franchise for somebody, and he deserved more than what the $90 million or whatever he was offered. So it happened to Bonzi Wells too. I don't know if you guys remember that, but some of these teams make very, very fair offers, and agents aren't going to be able to talk any sense to them. But when a player wants to move, almost always, right? It's like, you will not win. You just have to get what you can as soon as you can before they tank their value further. The longer Ben Simmons sits just playing roster, that's games played on another team that would have been more valuable. The price there's no way the price goes up from here for Ben Simmons from now until whenever he gets moved.
Yeah, I think it's time for the Sixers to cut their losses. The one team though that we haven't brought up in the Atlantic Division.
First place.
What do you guys think of the Knicks?
Yeah,
I hate the Knicks. Diehard Nets fan. I hate the Knicks, but I watched them just annihilate the Sixers yesterday, and they're impressive. I think they're missing a piece, but you got Randall playing really well. You got Mitchell Robinson, the blockness monster, really locking up the paint. You got Rose and Kemba. How long can they stay healthy is the question. You got Barrett starting to come into his own. Evan Fournier is like the France version of Patty Mills over here. You get him in the Olympics, he gets that boost of confidence, and he's taking over. I mean, they got a deep roster. They got a deep roster of like very good players, but not like a star.
Because like after them, you still have Quickly. You have Obi Toppin, who is still growing. I mean, you also have Alec Burks. Like you have solid guys behind all of them that are all buying into a system run by Tibbs, which has proven to be a pretty good system.
They're like,
they're just really good.
If you played NBA franchise mode, they're a team that's like a bunch of 77s to 82s. There's no 90, but you roll out 8 of them there and you're going to be competitive.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to take your hats off to Leon Rose for one, and for Tom Thibodeau. Like, how many times has Thibs done this? Right? He goes to an organization and then immediately turns it around, and they're a playoff team. I know the results were a little bit more questionable in Minnesota. Like, he didn't get it done at the level, like they squeaked into the playoffs, right? But it feels like every single time you've seen a Tibbs team, it is like Derrick Rose and a bunch of guys at the car wash at the YMCA or something that he turns into like a 3 seed. First of all, the thing that always automatically pops out to me is how Taj Gibson like owes a lifetime of debt to Tom Thibodeau, right? Wherever he goes, Tom will give him a job, sign him to a deal, and then he just does exactly what he needs, like play quality defense, never worry about scoring, be a tough guy inside, defend well, and then play his like 18 to 22 minute role and fill in at center or whatever, whenever there's an injury or whatever needs him. But that guy, like, you know what I mean? Will probably lay down his life for Tom Thibodeau after getting contract after contract after contract.
And I never thought we would.
Him and Derrick Rose. Sorry, go ahead, Dennis.
No, I was going to say, I never thought we would get to a point again where a Taj Gibson absence, like he was absent when they had a child, he was away, where they were actually talking about the significance of Taj Gibson not being in the lineup.
Yeah, true. It's a real thing.
I was like, when did this happen where Taj Gibson all of a sudden, like, he matters again? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think you have to like take your hat off to Thibodeau for that. I mean, to me, like according to Bovada, he's plus 2,500 for Coach of the Year odds, and he should be higher than that to me. But obviously, with the whole politics thing, he's probably not going to be one of the front runners for Coach of the Year. But I mean, like you said, Taj Gibson. I mean, he's coached like Derrick Rose in almost every single season that Derrick Rose has played, and he gets every team that he has to just buy into just like hard-nosed basketball that just it works. And the playoffs are a different animal when it comes to that, but the team just always looks better. And one of the biggest knocks he always got was, playing his top guys a bunch of minutes. And even now he's starting to get younger guys in, which was something that he was always criticized for, not putting in the rookies, not getting the young guys enough time. And I mean, he's even starting to change some of that too. So, I mean, the Knicks, they're just a really fun team to watch, to be honest. That their first game, I think, against the Celtics when it went to overtime, that was an incredibly fun game to watch.
So, Thibodeau went to the Mike D'Antoni rotation school, where I remember D'Antoni when he was coaching the Rockets, the only guy he brought in off the bench was Eric Gordon. So he played like 6 guys the entire game. So, I mean, the Knicks are looking good. Kemba Walker's looking good. Love Kemba Walker, just a great player. A guy who, just like I've said before, doesn't get the respect he deserves because of injuries. However, they do have a test coming up on Thursday night against the Bulls, 4-0 Bulls. I mean, it's going to be, yeah.
Dennis is just hitching his wagon to the Chicago Bulls. And right now it looks good. Right now, Dennis and LeVar Ball look like absolute geniuses. But you don't think they're going to come crashing down anytime soon?
No, hey,
they don't even have Kobe White back yet.
Yeah, they know it. I'm going to be rocking my Chicago Bulls starter pullover with a big pouch in the front, like everybody used to wear in the 90s.
Does it still fit?
Yeah, it's a little too small, but you know,
it's a little snug.
I actually have a picture, and I'll send you to you guys. I was probably 4 years old.
Please don't send me pictures.
I was in preschool. It's upstairs.
That was 2 years ago.
We were doing you put your hands to the side on the block and you look over, right? Whatever.
Oh yeah.
And I'm wearing a Chicago Bulls jumpsuit. So
nice.
I wasn't a Bulls fan at age 4. I mean, I liked Michael Jordan, but I know exactly. I have the same one, except it was a kid size.
I mean, but it's really nice though. You see, LaMelo Ball is playing fantastic this season, but then my man's Lonzo Ball,
MVP 2021-22, LaMelo Ball. Yeah.
Oh.
Josh is smoking the grass before he comes out, apparently. But
we got Dennis who loves Lonzo. We got Josh who loves LaMelo.
Where's LiAngelo sometime?
G League MVP. I could have swore I saw LiAngelo bagging groceries at my local Rayleigh's, but not totally sure.
Oh, the where?
Yeah, what was
local grocery store over here. It's called Rayleigh's. It's like our Kroger on the East Coast, basically. So
what part of the world are you from?
Bay Area, so right in between Sacramento and San Francisco. So I'm actually a Kings fan. You're a true Kings fan when you admit it, because no one else will own up to it except true Kings fans. But yeah,
I'm going to test you if you're a true Kings fan.
Bring it.
Oh God.
Who did they take in the first round of the 2006 draft?
2006.
They had pick 19 or pick 17.
17? 2006?
2 picks before Rondo.
Oh, trying to think about
Why
that.
do you even know this, Mike?
Is that... is it Brian Grant?
Nope.
I feel like that was the maybe Corliss Williamson was earlier than that.
Let me just confirm that I'm not leading you down the wrong path.
So you're asking them a question, a trivia question?
I'm sorry. It was the 19th pick. Rondo was the 21st pick that year.
You're asking them a trivia question. And you don't even know if it's.
I know the answer. I was making sure I didn't give them the wrong pick. Do you want the answer?
Yeah, bring it to me.
It was Quincy Doobie.
Quincy Doobie. Yeah. Failed
that's
shooting
right.
guard, small school shooting guard.
He was.
It had to be
Rutgers
somebody that
player.
was turned into a whole lot of nothing, unfortunately. For the
I'm
team.
a die.
That's
Hey,
why.
hold on.
That's
he led
why
the he led the Chinese Basketball Association in points. He scored 75 points in a game.
He's
over
no Jimmer Fredette. I'll tell you that.
I
Jimmer
actually have
Fredette is lighting up for the Shanghai Sharks.
I actually have a Jimmer Fredette jersey and shoes hanging up over here. Yeah, I have a shrine to Jimmer Fredette.
Best decision Kings ever made. You know what I mean?
Well, I was going to say, how fitting is it that you just said Quincy Doobie when Josh was just talking about LaMelo Ball being an MVP?
And smoking. Yeah, all right.
You know what I mean?
that works.
Hey, Quincy Doobie was my favorite player growing up. I had only Kings jersey before Jimmer Fredette's jersey that I ever had.
I feel like we should, understand the sheltered life that you lived. You know what I mean? And just give that the proper respect. If Quincy Doobie was like the guy that you idolized. So many good players out there. Why does it have to be Quincy Doobie?
Because I'm a season ticket holder.
Okay, fair enough. That makes total sense.
Hey, hold on. They also had Hamidi Injai, I think, was also on the Kings. They had a Rutgers to Sacramento pipeline.
Yeah. I mean, and you can see all the banners hanging up after those pickups for the Kings.
The same amount of banners that Chris Webber put up, though. So.
All right, so nobody cares about Quincy Doobie. All right, so here's what matters. And I said this I said this coming in, so you guys can tell me how right I am. All right. Lonzo Ball, LaMelo's getting all the props, but my man's Lonzo Ball, 14 points, averaging nearly 2 blocks a game. 2 blocks a game, shooting 43% from 3-point line. 6 assists, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. I mean, I called that one. I mean, this guy right now is looking like an all-star.
You're really taking a victory lap, and October hasn't even finished.
He's getting me a lot of fantasy points
Dennis,
so far.
you're like rounding the turn when you start at the beginning of the turn, and you know that's where you can't victory lap on October 27th.
What I don't understand too, first of all, I'm totally fine with Lonzo Ball signing, and I think it can work in Chicago for sure. I thought it was a little bit weird because you have Zach LaVine plays like a point shooting guard. You know what I mean? Like a 0.2. And they drafted Kobe White. So, are we really just that down on Kobe White? To me, always looked like a bench energy guy, like that. Like, just for whatever reason, they didn't give enough time or didn't fit in the lineup next to Zach LaVine. I understand he's a little bit small, and maybe you want LaVine to guard ones. I think he's big enough to guard twos for me personally, but. Now that you put Lonzo Ball and DeMar DeRozan, who, by the way, got I don't know where it was. Somebody had him listed as power forward or something on some sites. I'm like, bro, he's a 2. Sometimes you can play him as a 3 because
center.
Yeah, but he's definitely not a big. Okay, so but yeah, they just add a glutton of guards, and then Kobe White is the forgotten man for whatever reason. I don't really understand. I still think Kobe White's actually a pretty good player.
Well, I think it works though.
Go, Dennis.
I'll make it quick. Honey, sorry. I think it works though because Lonzo Ball he's not a scorer, and the guy by him, averaging almost 2 blocks per game. His defensive rating is always good. He can do it on the glass. He's a good passer. So now that you take him out of the situation, which they should be doing with Ben Simmons, which is what I've been saying all along, you take him out of that role as a primary scorer. He's never going to be a primary scoring option. He's not that good offensively. But whatever he brings in addition, such as defensive prowess, the rebounding, the blocks, all that stuff fits in well with a guy like Zach LaVine who can score a massive amounts, and then you got DeMar DeRozan, you got Vucevic. I mean, that team is stacked. So
basically, what you're trying to say is that Lonzo Ball is the appropriately paid, mentally tough version of Ben Simmons.
Correct.
Okay.
And on top of that, you're right. Ben Simmons should not be the number 1 scorer, but at least Lonzo Ball can shoot the ball. There's a big
get
difference.
on the court.
Guys, I'm in a good mood tonight. Let's not do this.
I'm ready to fight.
And let's not ruin Dennis's mood.
Oh man. But one team I actually wanted to bring it back to the Atlantic real quick. I wanted to talk about the Celtics. Just because they're a team that on paper looks like they should be at least a little bit better than what they are, especially with Tatum and Brown and Robert Williams getting better and Horford coming back with some leadership and everything and still having Marcus Smart and all those guys there. But every time I watch them, I'm like, okay, it's Tatum. Some days it's Brown and then the rest, and nothing really happens after that. So I'm not exactly sure what I feel like Boston is just banking on the fact that they're finally going to trade for either Cat or Beal or one of those guys, because if not, they're just going to be like a 9-10 seed.
What I don't understand how Boston sometimes loses games, because I watch Tatum play. This guy can score anytime he wants.
Oh yeah.
And it's like he'll put up 40, like it's nothing, and they'll be down 15. And I'm like, how? How does that happen? when they lost to the Nets last year in the playoffs, right? Tatum was having good game after good game. He was unstoppable, and all of a sudden they're down 8 points, 10 points. I'm like, where are they getting down? It feels like he's scoring every possession. So I just don't know how they lose sometimes. They have a good team, but it's like they're not using the team correctly.
Yeah, I don't know if they have that good of a team.
Well, they have talent. I mean, you have Tatum and Brown.
Okay, you have Tatum Brown, your boy,
Robert Williams is solid.
the Time Lord.
Yeah,
you got him in the middle before his toe falls off. But then you got Schroeder.
Smart's very good. Smart is a great defender.
Smart's a great rotational starter.
And I agree with Marcus
got
Smart.
15 tonight already. They got talent.
And I agree with
Marcus
Marcus
your boy
Smart.
Juancho Hernan Gomez, your favorite.
And you got Juancho. But anyways, like I always like Marcus Smart. I think he's a good attitude player. He brings a lot of nasty energy to these games. And he's a guy who, when you're in the playoffs and you got some shitbag like Patrick Beverley running his mouth, he's like a good guy to, like, you know, and I'm not saying Patrick, but a guy like that, like some idiot who just is talking shit, like Smart is a good guy to have around, but he's not the most. He'll have those games too where he drains like 5 threes in like 2 quarters. But then you have games where he completely disappears. But he's not an issue at all. But he's not that outside of Tatum and Brown, who Brown, by the way, if every player played like him after they had COVID, like China should be sending more shipments of that stuff over because that guy played fantastic after he came back from COVID.
I will also say Robert Williams and Marcus Smart are both in like the top 12 odds for Defensive Player of the Year on Bovada. So like these guys they do have talent, they have skill, but it's just not all coming back together. And it's like the young guys they got too, they're waiting on Aaron Nesmith to actually become what they thought he would be. Peyton Pritchard, like in Summer League, had like that 3-day stretch where he scored like 91 points in like 2 or 3 games.
No, it was in a pro-am.
No, but it was like that combined with the Summer League games.
Right.
Well, I mean, we're talking about a pro-am. You know, he shows up at the local men's league and puts up 75 points and then has 8 points in 2 other real games. Does that count as the same 91?
So more than anything else, I think I'm interested to see what Brad Stevens does as GM, because it feels like Danny Ainge was the guy who like was the tightest poker player in your local home game or tournament, right? You know, like he gets pocket kings and he raises and somebody else's re-raises and he's looking at his kings. He's like, oh man, that guy's got aces. I fold. You know what I mean? Like, how can you have like that many draft picks sitting on such riches and never pull the trigger on a major deal when they were in the mix for the championship, like a super good contending team year after year after year? So I love the change. I want to see Brad Stevens actually make like real shakeups and throw some players out there, because I know there were deals to be made and they could have done it if they wanted to. And then maybe like they could have been one of those teams multiple times. It was like a player away, right? Like a one major star. What if they get Harden instead of the Nets or something else like that? Could have been a completely different team. So I will see I would love to see if Brad Stevens is going to make a big move like that.
Well, they did to their defense make that trade for Kyrie Irving, but you know, you got to know what day of the week it is when you get Kyrie Irving. You don't know if he's...
I mean, Kyrie forced that though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that. True. But also they went and got Gordon Hayward, and then 5 minutes into his Celtics tenure, his ankle went the wrong way. So
that's true. Yeah, you know, but I always felt like when those deals happened, that they were kind of playing for second place. Like you knew when KD went to the Warriors and Gordon Hayward went to the Celtics, you're like, yeah, that Gordon Hayward deal doesn't matter. Okay.
Yeah, no, I agree. I felt like Danny Ainge, like he like held on too long. Yeah, like you said, like it was go swing for, if it wasn't Kyrie Irving, if it wasn't Gordon Hayward, go swing for Russell Westbrook or Paul George or whoever the player was, and give up Romeo, you know, these picks that turned into Romeo Langford and Grant Williams or whoever. I don't remember who they're,
and especially at the time,
I don't remember who they used them on, but.
And especially at the time, you have LeBron in the East. So it's like, you're going to need a lot more than just that to beat LeBron. It's like when Anthony Davis became available, a lot of people started talking maybe the Celtics will go for it. And then that never amounted.
Yeah,
and even Cat and all sorts of people, it just never amounted.
They needed to get to like what I thought was like the Paul George level. You know what I mean? Like there are only a few players that are going to be able to match like bucket for bucket when the game is on the line in like deep in the playoffs. Paul George is like one of those guys. I thought he proved that. We saw Kawhi Leonard do that with Toronto. So like there's probably a small group of guys that they could probably actually get that would have been super impactful, like Gordon Hayward, Al Horford, all those other guys. Kemba Walker and injured Kemba Walker were never going to be like, you can't do it Butler style, you know, where you put together like a team that's really, really cohesive and everybody's on the same page, because in the playoffs, it turns into ISO ball at the end of games. Like, who's going to go get a bucket, right? Is KD going to make the last shot? Is Giannis going to be able to make a play, or Chris Middleton or stuff like that? It just becomes clutch time, right? You have to have those primetime cookers who can get you 30 or 40 in big games. You know how the rotation shrinks, right? Like there's like 6, 7, 8 guys playing when the games actually matter deep in the playoffs. So all these other ancillary smaller moves that they made it, you know, if that guy can't carry your team in the playoffs, the Celtics were never going to have a chance, which is why I was kind of disappointed with what Ainge did. Never got to like he's always like a level below what you really needed to do to make themselves the number 1 seed.
Well, it didn't. I still remember that the year they got Hayward and that opening night and everybody, the buzz about the Celtics, and then like a minute and a half in, and I still remember Kevin Harlan going, Gordon Hayward just broke his leg. And I'm like, no, how does he know? And then they show the replay and his ankle is like flopping all over the place. Like, and I go, yeah, he's probably right. He broke his leg. But yeah, ever since then, I think the Celtics long-term projections just at that moment, just I don't think personally the Celtics projection, like their path hasn't been the same ever since that.
If I was Brad Stevens, I would do this year too, like just to try to be all in and get to the next spot, because I don't think they don't have the ammo. And you know, I love Jason Tatum and I love Jaylen Brown. I know he's injured, but like that team it's probably not getting past the Bucks. It's probably not going to get past the Nets team that's going to be better than it is right now when they make the ads that they get. Like, you need to go get Bradley Beal. To me, like Bradley Beal is the one guy that the Wizards keep trying to hang on to, and their team keeps getting worse every year. And Bradley Beal says, "Oh, I'm loyal to Washington." Like, and Washington's like, "Great, because we want to keep you anyway, even though we're not going to compete for a damn thing." As a maybe I
don't know why he's so loyal to that team. That's like a guy staying with some chick who cheats on him all the time, or vice versa.
Maybe he just doesn't want change, you know, or maybe he sees himself as one guy who just wants to be with one organization and retire like Kobe, and like, you know, DC loves you forever. So I get that piece. What the Celtics have to do is pay a crazy price that makes the Wizards say, like, we have to do this, right? Like Marcus Smart and like, you know, maybe another player, Schroeder or whoever, and then like 4 ones. Something that they would be really dumb not to take, right? And then the Celtics were like, we don't care. You know what I mean? We just know we need Bradley Beal if we're going to have any shot to win, and we need to put him on the court with Tatum and Brown. That's kind of where if they don't do anything like that, like Bradley Beal level or above, you can just go ahead and, you know, book the golf trip early for the Celtics here after the regular season.
Yeah, and I mean, another one of the guys they always keep getting tied to is somebody like Cat, because he's another one where like Minnesota hasn't been competing for anything except for the one season that Butler was there,
right? And
then, so, I mean, if Boston could get a guy like that when they've been desperately needing a superstar big man like him for the longest time since Kevin Garnett, then I mean that's a move you gotta just throw everything in for.
Watch out though on the Timberwolves this year, because they've been surprising the start, and they're currently up 20 on the Bucks. So
I love Anthony Edwards too, by the way. I think Anthony Edwards is going to be an absolute monster. I thought he was like a guy that maybe shouldn't get drafted number 2 overall when he was talking about how he should actually be a rapper, and he's like the best rapper out there right now. And I was like, okay, automatically I don't want this guy. If this is like the guy he's talking about how he really missed out on his rap career right before the NBA draft, like, please get me out of this situation. But then you look at him, and then you're talking about how much he was listening to Ricky Rubio, and then how he separated himself, in the second half of the season, really took his game to another level, and like how he really is like, after they lost a couple games, and they're talking about, hey, like we're not getting the ball enough to our like secondary starters, which to me is also misguided. Like those guys actually don't need shots. Like, I know that you want to be a good teammate, but like, and talk about how like Jaden McDaniels needs to get integrated in the offense. No, he actually doesn't. You just need D'Angelo Russell to hit some shots, actually, is what you need to do. And keep taking the shots that you're taking, because those are probably almost always better than any other teammates not named Cat or D'Angelo Russell. Like, I'll give me a tough jumper from Anthony Edwards, like, 23 feet out versus, an 18-foot, single defense jumper from anybody else on the roster. I want as many shots as Anthony Edwards as possible, because I think he's a future All-Star.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. And I will say one thing: we always make fun of Pat Beverly, but he's brought something to Minnesota that they desperately needed: attitude and defense. Like their defense has been toilet paper for the longest time, and he actually gives them some needed grit.
And not even like the good kind of toilet paper, like the kind that like
the one ply,
like
hurts.
Hurts. Single ply,
commercial grade, like you get at Chevron, right?
Not
the gas station.
Not the Kirkland signature, but like the
sandpaper style,
the CVS brand.
It's like if that's all you had after a night at the hometown buffet, you're in for a world of hurt.
Yes, right, exactly.
Or Taco Bell.
Here's one thing I will say: if I'm the Celtics or somebody else, somebody needs to go steal Malik Beasley off the Timberwolves roster, because he's buried. He was amazing when they had injuries left and right, when he was playing all the minutes that D'Angelo Russell couldn't take. He was scoring 20 a night plus. And like, he looked phenomenal right now. And the guy can barely get a bucket or a minute on that roster now, especially with Pat Beverly, Anthony Edwards, D'Angelo Russell. Like, the roster is, to me, he should set up nicely as like a bench microwave scorer. They're not using him that way. I don't know why, but Malik Beasley could start for 10 teams in the league right now and be 20 a night. And if I was like Boston or anybody else that was looking for some extra ammo to compete, I would go get Malik Beasley and pay like a decent price right away, because he has the potential to be like a really impactful rotation guy, and maybe should start for some of the lower end teams in the league.
And there was even rumors from all the Ben Simmons trades about it being for Malik Beasley and maybe D'Angelo Russell like together. And I was like, I would do it. Go for it. Just at that, like, that's not a bad haul, especially with how much his value's tanked. So Malik Beasley, I mean, is definitely able to fill up the scoreboard anytime that he wants.
I mean, I think all that time in the local correctional facility, though, might have had an impact on things.
Hey, you never know. Toughen them up a little bit. You know what I mean? And the next thing you know, like, they're all hard fouls from here out from Malik Beasley. You know what I mean? There's no touch fouls anymore.
He's got a teardrop tattoo.
At least he wasn't, Contavious Caldwell Pope, who couldn't leave the state of California and had to wear like an ankle bracelet.
Hey, wasn't it Jimmer who in like high school practiced in like prison games? I think that was Jimmer who said like his dad would take him to the local prison and he would practice against inmates.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Talk about some volunteer work right there.
Let's go play with a bunch of child molesters.
That must have been some. That must have been some like Mormon missionary type thing he had to do.
It could have been, but
I heard you know a lot about missionary.
I knew once I said that you were going to say something.
To wrap things up with the Atlantic, we'll get into Dennis's favorite topic about Scottie Barnes and the Toronto Raptors. Well, Water Ice is like 1A. Scottie Barnes is like 1B.
Pizza,
real quick, Josh, what do they call it? Italian ices in California or water ice?
Italian ice.
Okay, so only Dennis is the only weirdo. All right.
The entire city of Philly calls it water ice.
Yeah, exactly. When I was in Philly, they were calling it water ice, and I didn't care what they called it. I just tried to fit in. I didn't want to cause any waves. I just wanted the ice. That's it.
If you want to be real Philly, you just say water ice.
I don't need to go that far. All I knew is I just said, keep them coming.
You just said, give me 3.
Give me 3 blue raspberries and call it a day. But I'm sorry.
Well, the guy,
I didn't mean to divert from Scottie Barnes talk.
I was going to say, I think the guy got he knew what was going on because every time he walked by me, he would just stop and I didn't even have to say anything. He'd
be like, "You need another one."
It's like a refill on a soda at a restaurant. Can I refill that?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so Scottie Barnes, the Raptors. Obviously, the Raptors aren't that great. So there's going to be plenty of playing time for a lot of different people for Toronto. But I mean, Scottie Barnes has been looking every bit as good so far as what Dennis has been saying. And even though it's early, I mean, Scottie Barnes has been looking really good. And even some of the other guys on the team, like, I think they should give Delano Banton some looks too from the minutes that he's played. But I mean, Toronto has some good pieces, but they're just, again, like if they still had somebody like Kawhi, we'd be talking about them in like a top 6 seed to me. But with no superstar, they're obviously just outside of the playoffs looking in.
Yeah. So here's one thing I want to say too. Like, this might sound a little bit crazy, but I might actually, like, just on a pure talent perspective, like young talent, right? I might like the Toronto Raptors roster better than the Knicks. That may sound like just the weirdest thing in the world, but you're looking at like Scottie Barnes, OG Anunoby, who I think is super talented, Pascal Siakam, who should be better than he was, like it's probably untapped potential there, and dealing with the shoulder injury. I actually really like a lot Chris Boucher. If Chris Boucher could figure out how to be a starter like consistently and just take the way he approaches bench minutes and just say like, okay, now I'm going to do that when I'm starting for them. Like Chris Boucher looks like he should be an absolute monster in this league. Stretch 4, stretch 5, can hit the 3, shoots a good free throw percentage and block shots like nobody's business. I mean, I don't know. He should be better than he is. For sure right now. I love Fred VanVleet, and I think Gary Trent, is an absolute scorer. The only thing is just like Goran Dragic is probably a guy that just needs to go. He doesn't fit there, and I understand why they do the deal, just salary relief, and get some assets back in return for Kyle Lowry, who was going to move on anyway. But for young talent, just to me, why you should give all the credit in the world to Thibs is because I don't think that they're the first best, that they have the best roster or the second best roster or maybe even the third best roster in the Atlantic, but they're probably the best coach team, and they're playing the system to perfection, and they probably play the best defense. And I think maybe them and the Celtics, like 1-2, whoever you want to decide between those two teams. Like, I don't think they have the best talent at all. And Julius Randle too takes like a good amount of bad shots on that roster too, and yet they still win. Like, he'll just rein it in just enough, like crunch time, for like, okay, all right, Derrick Rose, like, get us into a good set here.
Yeah, well, when you have Mitchell Robinson and Taj Gibson around to get your offensive rebounds, anybody can miss shots.
That's true.
True.
Yeah. But I mean, are we in a point now where Nick Nurse is like not a good coach anymore? You know what I mean? Because there's like a lot of good talent actually on that team, and it's not getting developed right now. So,
well, to be fair, they did deal with a lot of injuries, and they have been dealing with a lot of injuries. So
yeah, and COVID was probably more unfair to them than anybody else. Like, they just spent the entire year on the road, so that had to suck.
Yeah, I know. That must be tough to leave Canada and play in Tampa.
Yeah, that's, in some ways kind of be like, oh, yeah, but, I mean, it's your home still. You know what I mean? Like, It's probably never feels comfortable living out of a apartment or whatever for a year.
But Dennis, I mean, you would know best. You pretty much live in Canada, so.
Yeah, unfortunately. But Goran Dragic is like, the one year that I had to get picked up by the Raptors, it can't be the year that they were in Florida. It has to be the year that we're in cold-ass Toronto.
If they're still in Florida, he would just have to drive up the street.
Drake's not going to Tampa, though, to go to games, so it's the offset.
It's true. That's true. I mean, but it does also speak to Toronto's roster and their young talent when they have like according to Bovada, 5 guys in the most improved player of the year conversation in like the top half of the odds.
Yeah.
I mean, they do have a lot of guys, and you brought up OG Anunoby, who's one of my favorites for most improved player of the year.
Mhm.
And like Chris Boucher, very good talent. And then, I mean, even a guy like Kem Birch is a great person to have off the bench, like the first big man off the bench.
Mhm.
Now you got Scottie Barnes, Siakam coming back, and they aren't even playing Malachi Flynn much so far this season. And Flynn showed some flashes of it being able to be a bench point guard. And right now it's just kind of, it looks like the whole team's just in experiment mode. And even though they could be in a win mode and make the playoffs if they were actually like properly coached.
You guys know that Chris Boucher led the team in blocks and shot 38% from 3 last year. Like, how insane is that guy right now? And like, how can you not get him 30 plus minutes per night when he has that kind of like, both sides of the floor, 2-way player ability? Like, I don't know. I sound like I'm ranting to myself about this.
Yeah, no,
I'm so upset.
I completely agree with you, because I was gonna say last season he was like a completely different guy, especially like if you had him on a fantasy team like a cat league and you're like, I need blocks.
It's gold.
Like,
yeah,
that guy was awesome, and then all of a sudden, like this year, he's like, I think he'll bounce back though at some point. I just don't see this being. We're only 3, 4, 5 games in, so
true. And I mean, Siakam hasn't played a game yet, so
Dennis is already writing all his predictions in pen, and that everything is correct. So anything he says now is obviously going to stay true in March.
I mean, I'm off to a good start. More than you could say. I finally
figured out though why you love Scottie Barnes so much, and it's because he's shooting 17% from 3 in his first 4 games of his career.
I thought you were going to say he also likes water ice.
He likes white. He likes.
I haven't gotten that far. I didn't do that deep of a dive on him, but I saw that he shot about the same percentage you probably shoot from the 3-point line. So that's why you like him so much.
I mean, everything else that he does is they should. The best thing Nick Nurse could be like, listen, man, stop shooting the 3.
He's going to average 16-8, just like Ben Simmons, and he's not going to be able to shoot. And he's going to be the perfect player for you. I'm kidding. I'm not forming an opinion off of Scottie Barnes after 4 games. I just wanted to take a dig at you.
Yeah, I would fall for it. So.
He had the stone cold face and was about to kill you for a second, but then he brought it back. But so wrapping it up here a little bit, Josh, we kind of wanted to get your take on some fantasy things because we know you talk about fantasy a lot of the time. Obviously, we know guys like Durant and Harden and Embiid; those guys are going to be a lot of the top fantasy scoring players. But who are your favorite non-superstar type of fantasy players from the Atlantic and even from the rest of the league as well?
Alex, they're called sleepers.
Not exactly. Starters aren't technically sleepers. Like, you can still pick a starter that's not a superstar, but he's not exactly a sleeper.
So, I mean, I love Robert Williams in the Atlantic. I think he has all the upside in the world. Another guy, like, coming out of the draft, like, sleeps through the press conference and the announcement, misses his flight, where I'm like, oh man, this is already so bad here for the Celtics. But plays with extreme energy, knows his role. And like, this is what I like to see. I like to see improvement year over year. So when he could take, his free throw percentage and, work on that, if he can legitimately hang around 70%, where he is so far this season, and just be the guy who's like a walking double-double, who's going to be an absolute shot blocker in the middle for them and a rim runner. This is like literally perfect for the Boston Celtics right now. So I love that role for him as well. I also really like Emmanuel Quickley. I honestly thought that the Celtics could have found a way to just start quickly, and just because he's just so dynamic and he was the best shooter on the team, like just put that extra shooter on the floor. Kemba Walker still works also, and they got him for nothing So it's completely fine. Now you can use Emmanuel Quickley in the Lou Williams super 6-man type role. So I think it's still going to work really, really well. But I'm still just amazed that you look at the Knicks and you get so much buy-in from how they're coaching that you have like RJ Barrett talking about how he wants to be first team all defense, right? Rather than worrying about being a 20-point scorer. For fantasy, I need him to be a 20-point scorer, not a defensive stopper.
I was just going to say that's RJ Barrett just pretty much just trying to come up with some excuse for his lack of offense.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're going to cover up for it right now if they're 3-1 and they're at the top of the first place. But like, honestly speaking, for them to get to the level where they're legitimately challenging the Nets in the division, because I still think the Nets are going to walk away with this when it's all said and done. Like RJ Barrett has to get closer to all-star level. He has to be a 20-point per game night alongside Julius Randle, in my opinion, to get there. Otherwise, you'll have a nice season, but Kemba Walker is going to be the same thing that he was with the Celtics. Maybe healthier, but like a guy that's not going to be the difference maker to get you deep into the playoffs. Like you can't, he's not a guy that you can put up against and expect to go toe to toe with Durant and James Harden when you need to score points in the playoffs. So for fantasy, totally fine. I like him, a lot. And the other thing too, like alongside LaMelo Ball, another guy I really, really like, which I don't understand why he's not starting, but can we please free Miles Bridges?
Yes.
What does this guy need to do to start for this team? And how many plays does he need to make alongside Lonzo Ball? Like, just keep him in the starting lineup forever and let that guy dominate right now. Averaging 25 points a game. I think he's got 28 again tonight. Like, yeah, it's so strange to me that we have to take this long to figure out that he should start alongside Lonzo Ball, but hopefully we're here and it just stays there right now because he has got all-star written all over him as well.
Oh, yeah, agreed. And I mean, we even had him in our most improved player predictions as well. And even on Bovada, he's third highest in odds for most improved player of the year, too. And I don't understand how all of the like hype around him, the fact that he's doing so well doesn't get him into the starting lineup. But I feel like he has to at some point. But
yeah, there's not 2 or 3 other players that are better than him on the roster right now. It's like LaMelo Ball and Miles Bridges are the 2 best players they have.
And Terry Rozier has been hurt, which is even crazier.
Yeah, I love Rozier
Exactly.
too, by the way. It's weird that he fits in well with this role, but I guess, when you have LaMelo who can guard 2s and you can just make Rozier a guy who can spot up and shoot and put the ball on the floor when he needs to and not do anything else, then it'll work out well. LaMelo Ball is making all the pieces fit really, really nicely. So that's a great thing to see.
Yeah, and I just want to, since we're in the victory lap era, Dennis, Alex can confirm this. A couple years ago when it was just me and him hosting, I actually, after he got drafted, I called Robert Williams being a sleeper pick. So I just want to take the credit for that. Alex maybe doesn't remember it, but I remember it. I liked watching him at Texas A&M. I thought he was a high energy guy. I didn't think he'd be a top 50 or 60 fantasy player like he's become, but I thought he'd be a good serviceable player. So
I'll throw mine out there. Yeah, good for you, Mike. I'll throw Jakob Poeltl. I mean, this guy's been a complete nightmare lately, who I also have on my Dynasty League.
Dennis just knows I'm trying to trade for him, so he's trying to increase the value.
Rock'em Yakum. Yeah, I love it.
His game against the Lakers was crazy.
I was in New York City, and the Spurs are playing, and they come off the bus, and there's 50, 100 people there wanting pictures and autographs, and DeMar DeRozan comes off, and who's the other? And DeJounte Murray comes off, and like a couple other guys, and everyone's like asking them for autographs. And meanwhile, like Jakob Poeltl and Devin Vassell or somebody, I don't remember who it was. It was 2 years ago, so probably not Vassell because I think he's a second-year player. But it was Jakob Poeltl and some random guy. I don't remember who the other guy was. Just walking around, like nobody stops them. Like you don't see a 7-footer walking around New York and it not be a basketball player. But nobody had any clue who this guy was. But they all wanted DeMar DeRozan and all those guys' pictures and stuff. And I was just laughing. I'm like, oh, it's Jakob Poeltl. But I'm not the kind of guy that's gonna stop him and ask for a picture. So
good, because you would have been like, get the hell away from me.
No, Dennis, we saw what happened when you met Richard Jefferson. He got all sweaty, couldn't answer any questions correctly. Like, I wasn't
Dead
going to run
lights.
after Jakob Poeltl. Maybe if it was like James Harden, I would have ran after him, but I'm not running after Jakob Poeltl.
For one, with the Richard Jefferson, I literally
What did I
stopped
say?
it. No, I was going to say with the Richard Jefferson thing, I literally stopped at 5 pizzerias before I went into Barclays because I wanted to try the pizza in Brooklyn. And then they throw these. I had no idea I was going to be on camera. The lights were hot. I was sweating. I couldn't help it.
Had the pizza sweats.
Too much pepperoni.
It was rough.
You needed a water ice to cool you down before the questions started rolling.
Plus, I was walking all over the place. It was one of those times where it wasn't really that cold, but it was cold enough to where you needed a jacket. But once you start walking, you didn't need a jacket. So that didn't help things.
I just hear a lot of excuses, really.
Like Josh didn't know who the 2006 first round pick was.
Oh God, here we go.
You didn't know who the Nets all-time leading scorer. It just brings the legitimacy of your fanhood into play.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I'm a piece of shit.
Did you actually know it was him before that happened?
What, me?
Yeah.
Did I know
that he was the leading scorer?
Question?
That he was the leading scorer?
Yeah, of course. What do you think? I didn't know that. Come on, I'm not Dennis.
Is it Derek Coleman?
No, it's Brook Lopez.
The leading scorer of the Nets all time?
Dennis said Buck Williams.
It is Brook Lopez.
Wow. Okay, that's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Like,
I was Brook Lopez there long enough. I was like, really?
Yeah, he was there about 24 years.
Not Derek Coleman?
But I tried to come up with Buck Williams, but then, like I said, I had I think I had a stroke even before I had 5 places of like 5 pizza places. I couldn't.
To be fair, Brook Lopez has the record by 4 points.
Who's second?
Over who?
Buck Williams.
Buck Williams.
Wow. Okay.
And then Dennis Vince Carter and Richard Jefferson.
But listen,
Dennis
asshole,
was Kevin Durant away from getting it right.
Yeah, I got questions right though. Don't make it sound like I didn't.
It's not like you said Otis Birdsong, all right? We'll give you a break.
I would have said Kerry Kittles.
He's 6th on the list. He's ahead of Derek Coleman.
Oh, okay. He's higher than I would have expected. So
Kenny Anderson would have been another name I tossed out there, but
he's 15th, right above Deron Williams. And you know who's about to catch Deron Williams? Our boy, Joe Harris. He's only 300 points behind him.
As soon as they figure out how to get Joe Harris to hit a shot in the playoffs, that'll be a good thing.
All right. Well, with that, on that note,
yes. Well, he can't shoot. He's got that hair.
Just stick the knife in there a little farther.
We're going back to his hair in his eyes again with Dennis.
Well, I told him he's got like Alfred Payton. Remember that? I told you guys.
Oh
in the preseason, I messaged you. I said, guys, he needs to cut his hair.
There's a gray hair here. I don't know where it is. It's somewhere in this. This is from Joe Harris missing all these wide open shots against the Bucks.
You sound like me when I was in middle school watching Kyle Korver with Allen Iverson.
Well, you must have watched a lot of it because now you have no hair. So
exactly. That's
Speaking
why I
of
said
hair, my hair is
gel his
on
hair
point
up
tonight.
before his appearance.
Looking good.
My hair is on point.
All right, this isn't a hair podcast, so that's it for us. Josh
is awesome.
Thank you so much, Josh, for joining us. It was great having you on. If you need to plug any socials, anything, what you got?
At SiriusXM Fantasy, at Rotoballer Radio, at Josh Hayes FS on air, the leadoff spot every morning on SiriusXM. You can check it out on demand, on the app, and in your car. We'd love to hear from you guys. Tweet at us there. And we'll get to basketball season eventually when football finally calms down on the channel. But in the meantime, we got to nerd out like hardcores on podcasts like these.
Exactly. I mean, football always comes first in America. So
yep.
Yeah, we know how it is. But yes, everyone go check out his show. Make sure you follow, tweet, everything. And also make sure you subscribe here. If you're watching on YouTube, right below, takes 5 seconds. We're anywhere you get podcasts as well. Thank you again, Josh, for joining us. And thank you, everyone, for watching another episode of The Atlantic Files. Dennis wants to say something.
So real quick, we're talking about fantasy football. Christian McCaffrey, you could kiss my ass.
What happened now?
Have a good
Got
night.
injured again, like you always. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for watching. We'll catch you guys next week. See ya.